train and the platform.
Good evening and welcome to Life
After Five, a lifestyle and cultural guidebook for your spare hours.
On our show today, we talk about food trends and how social media influences our habits. We have a sneak preview from the hottest musical coming to the West End, for which our theatre reviewer will tell us more. But from the big stage to modern art, we see how anxiety has inspired two current exhibitions in London.
Later on, we'll have a special dance performance with a bit of a twist, but you'll have to wait to find out.
Ooh. Now it's time for music. Today's band have been together performing their original songs for a year. Please welcome Escape the Box with their single She Can Please Herself.
This way, yeah.
You took the galaxy and you put it in your eyes. Dressed up in a pretty-tight dress, we end up going out tonight. They say they love you before they meet you. Don't act so surprised. You're just on an ego trip cause you know that you look alright. Dance in the mirror like you're home alone. She's on a date tonight with her phone. She can please herself tonight, don't you know? She's a pretty little thing that thinks that she's a queen, and I like it. Yeah, I like it. She can please herself and I like it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it. She can please herself and I never something in the lavatory that I know you're gonna post online. No problem being vanity, it's not a secret and you ain't shy. I wanna see your pretty face with mascara running down your eyes. But sex was a fantasy and it's a tragedy and you ain't mine. Dance in the mirror like you're home alone. She's on a date tonight with her phone. She can please herself tonight, don't you know? She's a pretty little thing that thinks that she's a queen, and I like it. Yeah, I like it. She can please herself and I like it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it. She can please herself and I so promiscuous, licentious. I'll be running home to you if you are my girl. Salacious and dressed in laces. I want to be where your face is. Dipping sweet onto your thigh. Let me see you swallow your pride. Cause I'll be running home to you if you are my girl. I'll be running home to you if you are my girl. Yeah, I like it. She can please herself and I like it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it. She can please herself and I. Thank you.
Wow, well, thanks to Escape the Box. They'll be back later on, so stay tuned. Now, our first guest might change the way you look at your food. We welcome food anthropologist Celine Tang, who is here to talk to us about social media and how it's changing the way we eat. Hello, Celine.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to the show. We're very happy to have you here.
We are. How are you? Good?
Good, good.
So, do you want to tell us about what a food anthropologist really does?
Okay, I don't know how much you know about anthropologists, but basically,
Imagine I know nothing.
as a food anthropologist, I kind of like do anything and everything about food. So we research into the people who prepares food, who delivers food, and who consumes food. And we, by focusing on the most common food-like items, phenomenon, or trends, we try to look into the cultural and the social elements behind it. And in sense of that, we are the best consumer behavior researcher and marketing research expert.
Absolutely.
So I guess that's where the social media side of things comes into it.
Yes.
In what ways has social media influenced our collective eating habits?
Well, social media, let's look at it as a pool of information, whether it is complete or fragmented. So the function of social media is it shows simultaneously what people in the world, on the other side of the world, what they're eating and how they're eating it. In that sense, we kind of feel like we are just dying with them, which we call commensality, meaning eating with people, sharing food. It's by sharing people with a group of people, you kind of form a community to which you feel you're part of it.
Yes.
That's, in that sense, you kind of find your identity and decide who you are, who you want to be, and what you like to eat.
Okay. And do you think social media has had any negative effects on the way maybe young people consume food?
Well, definitely, I think yes. I can give you an example because nowadays, as you know, keto diet and vegetarian, veganism, they're becoming more and more popular. And what people don't know is that what you see on social media is kind of idealized images and stories.
Yes.
But as far as I know, there's a quite famous food influencer from Finland. She, at the age of 37, has already experienced her menopause because
Wow.
of her extreme ways of diet, which she considered to be really healthy. But in fact, as you know, gluten-free, complete vegan, no animal product, her body started to show those symptoms of lack of nutrition.
So with these more restrictive diets, like veganism, for example, is that way of eating sustainable at all?
Well, I don't think so, because if you are talking about sustainability, what we need to think more is about how to achieve the goal of being sustainable, rather than focusing on what you're actually eating. For instance, we're all eating avocados thinking it's extremely healthy.
That is the stereotype.
But think about it, avocado is not produced in the UK.
No.
No,
And, well, if you have to transport it by planes or ship, well, how much carbon dioxide emissions going to reduce after all?
Yeah, makes sense. Do you think that social media might be encouraging people to think a bit more carefully about what they do eat?
On the contrary, I think
Okay.
no. Because, as I just said, social media just present us those fragmented information with which, without seeing the whole picture, it's easy for people to lose their judgment.
I see exactly what you mean.
Interesting. Pivoting slightly to things a little bit more on the upbeat side, what is currently trending in London's food scene?
This one increasingly popular trend is that you can find more and more cultural cuisine,
Okay.
which means the food can come from a completely different culture where you could never been thought about and seen. But because in the city of London, it's everything can find their market here.
Yeah.
Anyone can try and tell people whether I like or I don't like. So I can give you an example is that the forms of having tapas.
Yes.
Because this is not a traditional British way of eating, but nowadays, having tapas and natural wine is the new trend of restaurants in London.
I actually wanted to ask you about that because there's a lot of talk about natural wine. So can you tell us about that and what's maybe different from, say, organic wine?
Okay, so there isn't any official or absolute definition about natural wine. So
Right.
it is a relatively obscure concept comparing to organic one, because you know there are certificates and laws and regulations to certify whether a winery is biodynamic, organic or not. But for natural one, it's just many people describe it as rustic or raw, comparing to the normal wine we're having. But really, it's just a relative concept, and normally it will include. It may include some producers from being, you know, biodynamic or organic certified, but not necessarily always the case.
Wonderful.
Fascinating.
One quick final question.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for how we can eat in a more sustainable way?
Well, my advice is don't go extreme. Do your research. Try to read different opinions and different researches. And what's more important is to give children a really good food education. Because when people are young, food is the item through which they get to know the world.
And eating healthily is all encased with that research.
Exactly.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been absolutely fascinating having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to have a short break. Stay tuned for a dynamic circus performance and an exhibition report that will let you understand anxiety a little bit more.
Happy Valentine's Day! Lucy?
My father's first car.
The public library.
In my grandmother's bathroom.
That's it. Almost!
Pearson Education. We all start somewhere.
My mummy died to the zoo one time. There was a caterpillar and played with my sister toys. We turned round and round and round and then we get off. That'll be my best day.
Did you know? The optimum temperature of the human body is 37 degrees Celsius. Below this, human flesh begins to freeze. The cold penetrates so deep it settles into muscles, tendons, and even bone marrow. At this stage, the human body will do anything to get out of the cold. Anything. Please, give them another choice. Donate.
Catherine,
Yes.
do you ever feel anxious?
Oh, of course. I think we all experience anxiety to a greater or lesser extent at some point in our lives.
Feeling anxious is never fun. However, it is an inspiration to many artists. We visited 2 exhibitions in London that explore anxiety within the contemporary world. First off, we went to the Science Gallery to gain a better understanding of the many clinical forms anxiety can take. Then we visited a video exhibition in Camden that tackled modern angst in a different way.
Shana Moulton is an artist that we've been researching and looking at for a number of years, and we have one of her works in our collection and thought she was a perfect artist to invite to respond to the amazing architecture here of our gallery space with a whole new solo show featuring existing works but also some very ambitious new sculptural video commissions. And it's the first time that she's presented a solo show in an institution in the UK. So it's a very exciting moment to give audiences a chance to experience her quite magical work. Shana always talks about her work being an honest response to the complexity of the world around her, and so using this character as Cynthia to perform in the guise of allows Shana to work through her concerns about how we navigate meaning in the world, and it's not a satire, it's a kind of affectionate portrait of the complexity of the world we live in. Anxiety is very key into the atmosphere of the show. I think the sense that we have so many options nowadays in terms of information to consume, avenues to pursue, but that sense of multiple options can also be quite daunting. And also we're pressed for time, potentially. So time is an interesting motif in the show. Shana's made work as Cynthia since 2002. The whole series of videos actually maps the aging of the artist and her fictional character. And I think this idea of a gallery space offering audiences the chance to step out of their usual time frame into these different kind of fictional moments is interesting for the show as well. Often time is looped inside Shana Moulton's work, so the character goes on a voyage of imagination, then often becomes overwhelmed by nature or technology, but then kind of falls from grace again back into her more mundane life.
On Edge is our 4th exhibition at Science Gallery London, and it is exploring anxiety, so life or living in an age of anxiety. So On Edge looks at anxiety with 3 main kind of lenses. It looks at anxiety as a clinical diagnosis, which can vary greatly and manifest in very different ways, but impact massively on people's day-to-day experience. It looks at anxiety as maybe a kind of state, a sociological phenomenon in a way. So it looks at this particular moment and which sociological conditions might be leading to kind of heightened states of anxiety. And it also considers how anxiety might be a positive force in our society. So how can it be something that motivates change? And particularly we're looking at that through a lens of climate change and anxiety and current protest movements that are really harnessing a language of anxiety as a force for demanding change. Science Gallery is a space where art and science collide, and we're really interested in giving our audiences direct inroads to interface with research and actually to participate in it. And Tyler Ely, who is one of the initiators of the GLAD study, is actually a curatorial advisor on the On Edge exhibition. And we felt that, you know, it's a really interesting way to consider your own relationship to anxiety. As you can see behind me, there's lots of really messy weaving, and we're encouraging visitors when they come to weave into this ever-changing loom, or if they want to unweave a section of it or reweave it somewhere else. And yeah, really what this work does is it kind of explores the felt and the unfelt, or the abstract idea of anxiety and a more tangible idea of ever-changing neural pathways and ability to kind of impact on our brains.
Both exhibitions open a critical conversation around the causes and responses. What I'm most interested in is that they are making visible the connections between individual experiences of anxiety and wider societal conditions that frame those experiences. Now, with a change of pace, let's take a look at what news we have for you today.
A rare portrait of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is up for auction. This artwork is one of only 4 portraits ever painted of the Austrian composer. The painting depicts a 13-year-old Mozart playing a harpsichord, wearing his classic white wig and red frock coat. He clearly loves that red frock, having held on to it for all those years. how does it still fit? The auction begins on November 27th in Paris at the British auction house Christie's. The painting is estimated to fetch £1 million. Now, after a painful 6 months, Paramount might finally have cracked the code on the design for the title character of the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog film. The film was originally scheduled for release this month, but Sonic ran headlong into a brick wall as its original trailer was met with universal criticism last May. Critics and game enthusiasts alike found the CG image of Sonic to be creepy, with features such as human teeth and long legs. A second trailer has now been released with an entirely reimagined version of the titular character. Let's take a look at it now.
I'm Sonic, a little ball of super energy in an extremely handsome package. On my planet, people were always after my powers, so I came to yours. It gets a little lonely, but that's okay. I am living my best life on Earth. Ow!
The reanimated Sonic the Hedgehog will hit cinemas on the 14th of February 2020. The gorillas on the island of Jersey have been sold. The colourful collection of statues went to auction earlier this week, selling for £1.1 million, with one of the 43 statues fetching an amazing £72,000. The Go Wild gorillas were previously located across the island as a way to encourage both residents and visitors to explore Jersey. Now, the gorillas will find new homes both locally and abroad, with many finding their way to the UK. The money raised from the sale will go to building a new enclosure for the resident gorillas at the Jersey Zoo. It has recently been revealed that there are still over 6,000 UK homes with black and white TV licences. TV licensing published the figures for the 50th anniversary of colour television, showing the 6,586 black and white TV licences still in effect, the majority of which are in London. Black and white televisions remain popular with collectors of both vintage and portable sets. I might consider making this switch back to black and white myself, as the annual TV licence only costs £52, a third of the £150 price of a colour TV licence.
Thanks, Catherine. Now for a performer who is usually on fire, but today there will be no flames, as we couldn't risk burning down the studio. Foiled again. Instead, Charlie Inskip will be sure to keep your seats warm. Let's see what it's all about.
Qu'attendez-vous de moi? Je ne veux rien. Je ne veux rien. Je ne veux rien. Je ne veux rien. Qu'attendez-vous?
What's this? What's this? What's this?
Thank you, Charlie Inskip. That was a great performance.
We are going to take a quick break. Stick with us as we ask the question, what would have happened if Romeo and Juliet had a different ending?
The house is warm. Oh.
He's here! He's here!
He's fine.
Jack! Jack, please!
That wasn't the card you meant to read.
What was the card I was meant to read?
I don't know. It was more formal. It was less...
Anatomical? I made it with my bum.
My father's first car.
The public library.
In my grandmother's bathroom.
That's it, that's it. Almost!
Pearson Education. We all start somewhere.
Shakespeare's works are known all around the world. Romeo and Juliet is the classic tragic love story. It's had many incarnations, both on stage and screen. The most recent one, however, takes the story in a different direction.
To the sound of pop music, writer David Westreed dared to imagine, what if Juliet didn't die? What if Juliet's famous ending was really just her beginning? What if she decided to choose her own fate?
What if we watch the show's trailer first, and then we have a theatre blogger in the studio to bring us a fresh review?
Juliet plunges Romeo's dagger into her heart.
What if Juliet didn't kill herself? I mean, really, that should almost be the start of the play.
I still believe there's something hanging in the stars for me.
You know, we should rewrite all your plays.
Finally, a musical that I already know all the songs to.
Here with us, theatre lover and blogger Sinead Chisholm. Hello, how are you?
Well, let's plough straight into it. What did you think of And Juliet?
I thought it was amazing, just in terms of the talent on the stage, the voices, the quality of the script writing. I also enjoyed the fact that it subverted the original genre from a tragedy, like that was, to a comedy with romance at its core. And romance and relationships didn't drive the narrative. Oh, tongue twister.
I know.
It's happening, I'm telling you.
It is a lot, it's a lot. But you know what, first time. Yeah, that's not what drove the narrative. It really did change it to a story of empowerment and self-discovery and just finding yourself and not letting other people kind of guide your destiny.
Sounds fab.
Yeah.
Sold me already.
Yeah.
Was there anything that surprised you about this musical in particular?
What surprised me was that Nurse was played by a black woman with a Trinidadian accent, which is something that did surprise me because when things get involved with Caribbean culture, you get that kind of stereotypical Jamaican accent that sounds very vague and where did that come from? And it took me a while to kind of get used to hearing that accent and kind of trying to identify it. And I think when confronting a West End audience with an accent that they're not familiar with, it forces them to consume that and to kind of try and find out more about what that means or where that comes from. Another thing that surprised me was the story of a homosexual love story. That is something that I wasn't prepared to kind of consume because you assume it's going to be about Romeo and Juliet and it's going to be that love story and it's going to be a man and a woman, and having that layered into the narrative was nice. And again, it's another point when the audience is confronted with something they didn't expect and something they have to kind of understand and rationalize. And I think that because both of these types of love stories are presented, it gives it equal weighting and equal importance.
Wow, it sounds like an absolutely fantastic show. It's glowing so far. Was there anything that you thought wasn't up to snuff, up to the rest of the quality of the production? No weak links here?
No, because I didn't have any expectations of it. It was literally, you know, the premise is if Juliet didn't die, and that could go anyway. And I think what would have been disappointing is if it wasn't about Juliet's self-discovery, it wasn't about her autonomy and her going about her life and trying to find herself. If it was literally her going to find love again or fall in love with Romeo, it would have just been pointless. And I think the play does what it needs to do in terms of giving us that alternative ending.
Do you think there are any other Shakespeare plays that could benefit from this treatment?
Potentially.
We'll probably slowly work our way through the phone. Oh, that would be a great one.
Yeah. I feel like the Witches could have some great songs.
Oh, the Witches. Oh, yeah. We need to copyright this idea. We shouldn't be saying this on live television. I don't know if we're leaking this. Now, one of the main selling points of this show, at least on all of the advertising, is the music featured within it. There's a lot of modern pop songs, songs written by Max Martin. What did you think about how they were integrated in the show?
I thought they were cleverly done. There was moments when members of the cast would speak and you'd hear like a line from a song and you're like, oh, I can't believe it's that song. And it's almost like it's cheesy, but it's good cheesy. Like it's okay cheesy, like we get it. It's almost like you get what's about to happen because you're familiar with the music. And I think it also allows the story that Shakespeare's done to be accessible. The language in Shakespearean plays are difficult for a lot of people to kind of understand, and through making it relatable and making people understand it in a different context allows it to be accessible, allows you to enjoy it, to understand it without having to go through all of the language that can kind of put you off.
Yeah.
So I think I can guess from everything that you've said so far, but we have to ask the question. So, if Juliet didn't die, is it a comedy or a tragedy?
Tragedy in the sense of there is disappointment, there is misunderstanding, there is conflict between Shakespeare and his wife, which is a large part of the narrative because the whole story is kind of framed within them rewriting the story and their dynamic and how they have different visions of what Juliet should do, what Romeo should do, and in that you kind of understand how difficult it was for their marriage to work in the context of Shakespeare going off to write in London. And that's something I learnt about the play. And you kind of hear their love story and understand their love story. And and I think it's comedic in the sense of the music, the use of the lyrics. There's a lot of humour, and through the spectrum of love and romance, you have different ages, and within that, you've got older people being romantic and being sexy, and it's like, it's not cringe, but it's not something you expect, and you have different layers of love, and I think that brings different aspects of comedy and tragedy at the same time.
So, biggest question, happy ending?
I think it is a happy ending.
Oh, leading. And can we find you, where can we find you online?
I'm on Twitter at RiMarieC, RiHMARIEC. And my blog is naewrites.wordpress.com. Naewrites spelt NAEWRITES.wordpress.com.
Great.
Amazing.
I'll be looking you up.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you so much for telling us about Anne Juliet. I'll probably book my tickets tonight after that.
Me too. Should we go together?
Yeah, we'll love it.
All right. We'll have a theatre date. Performances of Anne Juliet run from now until March 2020 at the Shaftesbury Theatre in London. Make sure you grab your tickets too before it's too late.
Isn't it scary how we're so close to the end of the decade? I, for one, am absolutely terrified. It's a good time to reflect on the defining works of the past 10 years. I'm certain some of the music from this decade will be around for long after 2020, but what were the 3 singles that stayed the longest at #1?
In terms of artists, maybe like Adele, a song, Hello.
Maybe a One Direction song. Night Changes, I guess is.
Okay, so I think the first one is Someone Like You by Adele. The second one, Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran. And the third one, Baby by Justin Bieber.
Maybe Sam Smith or something, because I feel like Adele and him, they both did the James Bond ones, so they must have been pretty big to be able to do that. Oh, I got the artist. Someone like... That's half right.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, that seems understandable now.
Hey, but okay. That was my #1.
Oh my goodness, really?
Ah, yeah. Wouldn't have expected that one.
Well, he's recently come out about like how he regrets doing that song, and he's like now understanding more how the lyrics were quite problematic, because there was a huge controversy at the time about this.
Oh my goodness, okay, yeah. Yeah, I think everyone was singing that.
Nice, yeah.
So it's Happy by Pharrell Williams. I forgot about that song.
I'm pretty sure I'll have Adele stuck in my head for the next 10 years.
Thanks for staying with us. Tomorrow at Life After 5, we will talk to a man who is bringing cassette tapes back into fashion, get a review of the upcoming Korean film Parasite, and explore how life on Mars will actually look.
Now we are going to enjoy a song that will hopefully be the next big hit. We leave you with Escape the Box to play us out with their original song, Whatever Happened.
This way, damn it. Come on, Redhead.
To you, I'm just a boy next door that'll play the music loud until the police stare cold. I'ma never turn it down. Yeah, I'm so cold, sure in a mirror, rocking out until my nana calls me son. Says I think your wash is done. Now I'm back at work only just to cash my check, and then my boss told me to get my feet up off the desk. That's the problem with you. You were never taught respect. If I had to make a choice, I think I'd rather stay in bed. Whatever happened to your big old dreams as a rock star? Whatever happened to you? I guess you never got that far at all. Now apparently I'm a selfish man, cause I do what I like, but I refuse to sit. Watch my life just pass me by. I remember back at school, I was always in the walls. Watch my class or reading books, I was staring at the wall. I said, one day I'll be famous, how much you wanna bet? I was raised on heavy metal, horrendous paper, having a sex. Yeah, my sound is that hard liquor and a stuff, that cigarette. But the people in my life tell me look at the brass, but I'm still a silhouette. Wow! Whatever happened to your big old dreams as a rock star? Whatever happened to you? I guess you never got that far at all. All your friends are growing up, and you're so far from a #1. Your career's a setting sun, but I won't give it up. you're never gonna fall. I guess you're never gonna fall.
We've been Escape the Box. You can get our EP Pariah. It's out now. Stream it on Spotify. Peace and love. Thank you so much.